Hey everyone, in this video we will talk about trade, politics, diplomacy and other issues regarding the Corsairs. I think you will enjoy this. So, to start things off, why were the Corsairs so successful against Europeans? It is an interesting question to ask, because the historians note that many Corsairs carried only the traditional curved sword blade. They had no armor. Then they went on to say that gunpowder was scarce and was of poor quality. Then how? The answer is speed. The Corsair galleys were purposefully built for speed. With a slick design, they were lightly armored and gunned. Most of the time they had no cannons aboard, so they could pick their fights. It was easy to force a battle, and it was even easier to escape. It was almost like the naval version of the ancient horse archers' tactics of the steppes. Due to competition between various European nations, there was an arms race, and their ships became so strong that some of them having up to 100 guns. They were overwhelmingly more powerful than anything Corsairs could put to sea. What did Corsairs do? Focus on the merchant ships. Speaking of merchants, I also want to talk about the trade of Barbary states. As trade boomed worldwide, the Dutch and the British got involved. They lost ships and crews to Corsairs as well. In order to negotiate and pay the ransom fees for the captives, the British set up consulates in Malta, Tripoli, Algiers, and Tunis. These diplomatic steps turned the Barbary states into opening up the trade. Trade boomed. In 1700s and early 1800s, 50 British ships worked to move Barbary goods to British holdings in the Mediterranean and Britain itself. The most coveted produce was wheat. Every year, 7,000 to 8,000 tons were shipped out. But there were also huge loads of other cereals and leather, wool, and oil being shipped. Meanwhile, the European goods found their way into the North African market. The British consulates in North Africa were very helpful to understand the daily life there. They noted down a lot of things. They seem impressed with the quality of life there, often referring to it as pleasant. There were many beautiful gardens and fountains within the city of Algiers, and it was a very multicultural hub. There were embassies of many European countries there. Many different languages could be heard spoken in the streets. With its 100,000 population, it was the biggest in all of Africa and one of the biggest in the Western Mediterranean. It was known as one of the most tolerant cities. Churches with long towers, side by side with mosques and crowded synagogues, flourished. It is also important to say that the bazaars were vivid and full of goods and items from India, Americas, and Europe. Let's talk about diplomacy for a while. The Ottomans ruled the area with a hands-off approach. This way, they could distance themselves from the activities of these states, such as pirating. They can also act like a superior and dictate terms on the Barbary states. European powers, most notably the Dutch and the British, lobbied and bribed high-level Ottoman bureaucrats in Constantinople to incentivize the Sultan to demand the Barbary states sign the treaties. The founder of Algeria Turkish Corsair state, Hayrettin, put his statesman skills to use, since he could speak Turkish, Arabic, Greek, French, Spanish. He had a natural lisp, so he sounded like a native in Spanish. He could also converse in Italian as well. After the Battle of Preveza, The Turkish state in Algeria was considered a formidable Western power by the Europeans. And lastly, we will talk about the military might and makeup of Algeria. The admirals of the fleet also had the role of foreign relations. This gave them immense authority on what to do and how to act. Decisions could be made and applied lightning speed. The remnants of the past pushed people to make overestimations. In many sources in late 16th and early 17th century, the Barbary fleet's ship count is given around 30 for Algiers port, whereas it could hold only 20 galleys inside, at full capacity. But in reality, it was around 10. Similar to that of the Ottoman Empire, instead of Janissaries, there were Algerian elite forces stationed in Algiers, made up of people from each corner of Mediterranean. The biggest group was surprisingly the Spaniards. Their mission was a combination of police, military, secret service, security detail. They manned the coastal guards, watchtowers, control ships entering the port, guard Dey's palace, and more. Even though many were criminals in their past, Algiers was perhaps the safest city in whole Mediterranean basin. This shows the brotherhood they had was precious and honorable. That's why many volunteers, adventurers, undesirables, renegades all flocked to Algeria.